Britain is in a mess. In some areas, it'll be 20 years before wages are back to the levels they were before the crash. And there are 65 cold spots where people's life chances are severely diminished. And now every single member of the group that's meant to advise the government on how to improve social mobility has resigned. They blame globalisation, deindustrialisation and austerity for the situation we're in now, and say the government is too focused on Brexit to address the problems we face. I do believe Mrs May recognises how serious this problem is. Even the resigning chairman, Alan Milburn, accepts this, but that means nothing unless her government is prepared to do something about it. Clearly, to improve the life chances of those living in those 65 cold spots will mean significant new investment over many years. Yeah. And given where the country is financially, the only way of paying for those initiatives is, I'm afraid, increasing taxation.
Gregors, I've said this so many times and I will say it again. I really just think you should create a voluntary increased tax code for yourself, good people like you, and pay more tax, because no matter what the problem is, you think the answer is more tax. So just voluntarily pay more tax.
I've got a list, just briefly. The problems of the NHS, you said raise tax. The problems of elderly care, you said raise tax. Problems of poverty, raise tax. England not being able to win at penalties, you said raise tax. Back to you, Michelle. Those are four.
I think there are other things about the penalties that you should
all right,
raise,
OK, well, I just wanted to check.
But
contact your accountant and ask him for ways to pay more tax. I'm sure he'll help you.
We have now lived through a period of austerity for close on 10 years, where local authority budgets have been decimated, where a lot of local authorities, the only money they've got left is for social care, and that has an impact. Now, it's no point...
And also stagnation of wages.
But there's no point the Prime Minister stand up saying, I believe all this, if they're not prepared to do something. And do something means spending money.
I don't agree with you that you think that the answer to everything is just more cash and more tax. So what I would say is I completely share your perspective in terms of social mobility being a very important issue, and we should be doing what we can to help people, you know, to progress through the ranks if that's what they choose and to better their life circumstances. I think I'm a great example of such, and what I would say is I do think I've developed my life. I've come from an area that many would describe as deprived, less so now perhaps, but when I was growing up, I wasn't aware of opportunities that were available to me. So, for example, I say now, today, I would have been a trader in the city. If I'd have known then, at school, what I know now, I didn't even know the financial institutions of London existed. I didn't know the opportunities as traders and all the rest of it. So, for me, it was a lack of awareness as to what I could become. Now, obviously, things are changing. So, for example, I think education, teaching people that there's so many opportunities that they could do and actually that they can achieve them. So I'm involved, for example, with something university technical colleges where we're working with employers to create different ways of learning for children 14 to 19, show them more of the opportunities that exist for them. I think that's great. That's not more tax necessarily going into that. And I think it's creating in kids better self-belief, because I was always told when I was a youngster, you'll amount to nothing, you'll do nothing, you're going to be like this, you're going to be like that, and I've changed that through hard graft and opportunity and aspiration.
But that needs investment. That needs investment.
But no one
we need to invest in those young people.
It's awareness.
It's not just awareness,
but awareness requires investment. It requires...
No, it didn't. That came from within.
Oh, but it's just a one-off. I can be a one-off.
But I don't think that's true.
But clearly it didn't, because she didn't end up as a trader, which is what she thinks that she probably would have done best.
No, but I wasn't aware of the opportunities that were there for me. So, for example, I used to set myself goals.
So how would we make you aware then? What kinds of programmes would we do to make you aware of the opportunities and then also provide you with those opportunities?
So lots of it
is
happening. So, for example, I've just mentioned university technical colleges. I think that they are a great practical example of how you can raise aspirations and awareness. It's about inspiring children. I hear so many young girls now going, "Oh, I'm going to..."
Everything you're talking about costs money, Michelle.
Where I agree with you, right? Where I agree with you is just throwing money at it without a plan is a waste of time.
Yeah, agreed.
And governments and local government have always been doing that. There's no point in throwing money without the plan.
Greg, can we have a look at what Theresa May said when she actually took office on this particular issue?
If you're from an ordinary working-class family, life is much harder than many people in Westminster realise. You have a job, but you don't always have job security. If you're one of those families, if you're just managing I want to address you directly. I know you're working around the clock. I know you're doing your best, and I know that sometimes life can be a struggle. The government I lead will be driven not by the interests of the privileged few, but by yours.
Well, I just have to say, Alan...
She looks 20 years younger,
doesn't she?
She looks 20 years younger. Sorry, June, it just struck me. God.
Well, Alan Milburn is a very close friend of mine, and I have to say the way that he and his team have been treated at the Social Mobility Commission is a disgrace.
They were coming to the end of their term anyway.
But the fact that...
So this flouncing around the studios last Sunday...
because they were not getting the support that they... there was a lot of lip service, but not the investment. I think is talking about.
I think that it was good to see that clip of Theresa May, because this is something she really believes in. Now, the problem is the government is caught in a catch-22 situation, which is that they are consumed by Brexit. And Alan Milburn, your mate, said as he left, the government doesn't have the bandwidth to deliver on the promises she made on the steps of Downing Street, because Brexit is occupying all available headspace.
But that's precisely the point, Rachel. The causes of Brexit are not being dealt with, and that means that if we don't tackle this stuff now, then Britain's in a lot of trouble post-Brexit, because in order for us to thrive, we need to make social mobility.
The people who voted for Brexit are going to be the ones most put out.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm trying not to use
of the 65 areas that they say it needs cold spots, where they need help, where they need... 60 of them voted for Brexit. They had a majority voted for Brexit. And basically, it was a protest vote. It was a vote saying, look, we are... Now, what is interesting about those is that those 65 is actually they're in strange places. They're, you know, a lot of them on the coast, a lot of them in the rural area.
West Somerset.
West Somerset is the top one.
And
London much better, the city's much better.
I do think those poverty figures need a bit of a health warning, though, because for some people... Well, in some instances, it's classed poverty if you can't afford a mobile phone. Now, to me, yeah, absolutely, because I did that story.
Those are income statistics.
And all the time you take 60% of median income and you class that as poverty, you're never going to get rid of poverty. It's almost like the poverty. Now, are there issues to be addressed?
Are always going to be with us.
Yes, of course there is. But this idea, I think those Joseph Rowntree Foundation figures, and I'm sure they work very hard on them, there is another way to interpretation, because people like my parents' generation, not that they were, but that was poverty. There were kids without shoes on their feet and nobody had an indoor loo. That's poverty.
In Milburn's last report, I thought they said something that I thought was quite profound. He said, whole tracts of our country feel left behind because they are.
Exactly.
Whole communities feel that the benefits of globalisation have passed them by because they have. Whole sections of society feel they are not getting a fair chance to succeed because they're not. Now, it's not easy, this, is it? It's not an easy issue.
But it's not only a priority. It should be as important as Brexit.
It should be a priority. It should take resource. If you don't want to increase taxes, then you've got to shift resource from somewhere else.